Welcome everyone to my weekday chess stream here on Twitch and lichess.org. I'm International Master William Paschall. We're playing blitz and classical chess here on lichess with a time control between 5 and 8 minutes, accepting all challengers between 5 and 8 minutes with a small increment. If you want to challenge me, please challenge to something between 5 minutes and 8 minutes with a 3 to 5 second increment. If you challenge me to the longer time control, the 8-7 minute time controls, you can make it just 3 seconds. If you want to play the faster game, 5 seconds is okay with 5-minute challenges. What's up, guys? We're going to play just normal blitz and classical. Tomorrow is my weird Wednesday stream when I play unusual openings. Today is normal openings day. It's Tuesday. I don't know what else to tell you that's new. A little quiet on the chess news front here. If you guys have any interesting stories or questions, comments, speculations about international chess or chess tournaments or what's going on in the greater chess world, feel free to partake in the chat here on Twitch. We had Saroche's here. Good to see you. I hope everything's okay. Missed you yesterday. Pawn Spanker, Vasilikos, Constant Change are challenging. We lost a couple challengers, actually. We had Plucro before, and International Master Rabran. I guess those guys got booted off the internet. Now I have no friends online. Saroche's gone too. Is it just me, or is it like lichess is kicking people out? We lost our challenger, International Master Rabran. We also lost our moderator, Jeroen. Alright, guys. We're going to get started with this game against Pawn Spanker. He's also from the Netherlands. Frequently plays in my simul's. We have 5 minutes, 5 second time control. I've got to be a little bit quick. I've been getting into time pressure too much in my recent games, so I really like to eliminate that. Morning. We haven't played too many games with e4, e5 lately, and I thought it's not really part of my tournament repertoire, and that's why I'm not playing that move too much. Your sick friend left yesterday afternoon. Jeroen, why don't I see you on lichess? It says no friends online. Are you like not logged on to lichess? No, you wanted a Sicilian. Gotta keep you guys guessing. My normal main defense is the Sicilian. I also play many other things, including the Caro-Kann. Lately, Alekhein's defense, sometimes the modern. Now, Bishop c4. I'm not really a lifetime e4, e5 player. And we're practicing our mouse skills, by the way. Alright, let's just play Hungarian defense. I really don't like and know the classical lines of the Joko too well. Also, there's a lot of nasty stuff like the two knights defense. I guess I would prefer to play knight f6 if I played one of the main moves here. That would normally be my thing. Certainly because I left the page and I'm here only watching on Twitch. Alright. We lost Rabran too. I was just thinking it was something with... Just as someone said, oh, there's another IM and challenges. Then he left. You scared him off, man. The same city as Jeroen. Well, that's interesting. I think I saw him having a conversation on the chat with you once. You guys didn't know each other. Just that was the impression I had. Pawn Spanker. D3. Okay, let's just think about Bishop E6 here. Man, I can't draw arrows. I'm just like mouse deficient. Bishop G4 is another move that I don't really like. Man, I hate this. I'm not going to try to draw arrows anymore. There's got to be a better way to draw arrows. They just break up for me. Anyway, I'm taking too much time again. Taking too much time. Constant Change, good morning. We have challenges from you, Vasilikos and Bakus from Mozambique. Bakus. We played someone else from an African country, or it said they were from an African country yesterday, but it wasn't Bakus, it was someone else. Blue Crow is back. We lost Blue Crow. So that was weird. Like a bunch of people. Oh, maybe it was Nabil. No, he's from the Middle East. I thought there was an African player yesterday. Alright. Bishop e6 is one of many moves I could play here. Maybe I made a mistake. I mean, maybe in this position it's interesting to play knight a5. Sigh. I can pick off the bishop pair there. I mean, objectively, that's probably a good thing. So, not being that familiar with this, I go with this kind of safe-looking move, bishop e6, but objectively, knight a5, he's just... In fact, I mean, you can even play it on the previous move, after d3, knight a5. That might be like knight a5, bishop takes f7. You can't do that. It could be something weird like bishop takes f7. No. I have to take a look at this. I don't really like this exchange on e6. I think he should play queen or bishop b3 there. But anyway. Alright, this is kind of standard position. I don't think that white has any real advantage here. g5 instead of knight f6 was interesting. That's kind of maniacal. Yeah, I mean, I guess I should just play knight a5. 500 master games of chess. I think that's like the best chess book ever. The collection of games annotated by Saveli Tartakover. That's like the epic, I think, you know, evergreen chess book that everybody should have. All these classical, mostly classical games, a lot of really, really important e4, e5 games throughout the, you know, early middle history of chess. And all like the really important historical games. It's good to study that book if you want to learn, you know, like, you want to play through the historically important, especially e4, e5 type of games in history. Anyway, g3, weakening the file there, but stopping knight f4, that's a very, very concrete move. I like that. That takes some guts to play g3 in this kind of position, but I think that's showing that Panspanker is capable of thinking outside the box, which is usually a very good, a very, very valuable trait to have. Yeah, it weakens your king side a bit, but he's got a good point. Now my knight is kind of stuck there, and I don't want to allow any kind of tactics. So I'm going to defend my h5 knight and hope to get some pressure along the f-file. Carl Schlechter. I didn't hear the name of the book. What are you? I'm talking about 500 master games of chess. It's probably one of the most classic books in chess history, written by, or the games are annotated by Saveli Tartakover. I think that's probably my favorite chess book in all history. I was a master before I even played through the games in that book. Let me see. Okay, so time here starts to be a factor. Whoa. the F file. The good thing about doubled pawns is that you always have a half open file that the other guy doesn't have. The benefit of doubled pawns. Monkey D. Bill is Vasilikos. Yo, you actually challenge. Okay, you're Vasilikos. Okay, good to know. Did not know that. Please challenge to unrated. Thank you for making the announcement on the PA system, Jeroen. Constant change, Bakus. I should check a little more often. Nabil Master Wasabi, that's a new one. Francais. I actually played him before, I don't recall that. Hard to remember everything. Especially when you have memory loss. Hard to break this down now. Alright, we have some problems breaking through, making progress, if you will. Just I don't want to see knight g5. I mean, if he had played h4, I'm most likely going to have to play this move anyway. It does weaken my king side, but I have a lot of pieces around the king to defend here. So I decided you could do the pawn stop with a5, but I decided not to weaken my queen side anymore here. Just focus on this side of the board. It's not a very exciting position, and while I'm solid, I don't really know how I'm going to break through here. Oh boy. He's gaining a space advantage on the queen side. I think white's just better now. The problem I'm seeing is that his knight will come here. Can't draw arrows. Okay, knight will come to c4, and it will put pressure on d6. There's not a lot I can do about it. We'll have to protect it manually, I guess. Wow. Okay, I mean, I obviously wanted to protect my knight in h5 with the queen f7 move. But I'm having a hard time breaking through. He also has knight c4 at some point. This is a strong outpost. You try to break up my pawn chain with b6. He's playing really well. I mean, I like this. Queenside expansion for white. Knight f4 check is interesting. He's threatening something rather violent here. Anyway, king h7 might be for the best. You don't want to overlook knight takes h6 check. Yeah, I mean, d5 didn't really ever cross my mind. I mean, I could have played that move like a bazillion times, but objectively, I don't know what he's up with. Queen b3 seems kind of weird. I mean, it's nice to attack this pawn, but I didn't understand queen b3 really. Does he want to go here? Seems like he's kind of abandoning the king's position. We have very strong piece sacrifice coming up. This is protected. This is protected. And now we just... Oh, you don't want to take my knight. Alright. We have a backup plan. Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape now. Winning that pawn. It doesn't win the game, but it doesn't hurt to be up a pawn. I've also broken up his pawn structure. And now, I think all we need to do is get rid of that knight. Knight on g4 is pretty nasty. I don't know, he should have probably attacked this pawn or attacked this knight and threatened knight takes e5, because now I can just get rid of this guy. Try to get rid of this guy and we're clearly better. Alright, well, he's got to go, I'm afraid. Kind of feels like a King's Indian now. Okay, pawn spanker is tricky. Undermining the e4 pawn. This is weak for me, but oh, all right. Actually, that's a bad diagonal. What am I doing? I can always play d5 if he plays c5. Yes. He's not really well coordinated. Okay, pawn spanker. I guess in the end, my heavy pieces were a little better coordinated. I don't know, but I think you were okay. We got a lot of challenges here. Wow, constant change, Bacchus. You guys see the list. So Haggard, DK, Mule Skinner, and Kirai Kospes. Mule Skinner, I feel like, was challenging before. Like, he should be further up in the list. Mule Skinner, you were actually... I thought you were actually like one of the first here. So we're going to take his challenge out of order. You suddenly closed your challenge. Me and wife needs to go shopping. If I could get a bit later, it would be nice. Rabran, so you you will play a little later. Well, we'll see what happens there. All right. I don't know. It depends on what time you're going to be back. But I think we can make an exception if International Master Robert gets back, and we've got I think any time before, like Haggard, DK would be fair enough. So he was here definitely before most of these challenges. If he comes back in the next hour or so, I think we'll let him have a game. Thank you, Rabran. It's always good to have an exhibition game here with another strong player. Bishop e5, Mule Skinner. How many times have we played this? What did you play last time? Oh, you do this variation, right? I'm not going to mess around here thinking all day anymore, because I have a tendency to think too long, and I do like to explain everything, but the time usage has gotten a little out of control. So I'm going to start just kind of making a conscious effort to play a little bit faster. Peter, I didn't understand if you were asking me. I'm actually from the United States. I've lived in Hungary, in Budapest, since 2004. I'm American, but I have lived here for 13 years. You'll Skinner now thinking, which is strange because we've played this position before. There are two moves here. He's played e5 in the past. The Plaskett continuation, we'll call it, and the other variation is the e takes d, the Djindji-Hashvili-Perelstein approach. They're both completely different in style, one of which leads to this sort of bizarre endgame, middle game, endgame kind of thing, and the other one is a complicated closed position. So he likes this better. He's going with the Anglican approach. The English player seems to like this e5. The American player seems to like e takes d here. Can't draw a straight arrow. I don't like the way this. Maybe it's my mouse. Maybe it's time to get a new mouse. All right. I was looking at this with the database like a month or two ago, and I don't know why. Like intuitively, I always leave the knight on b5, try to leave the knight on b5, but I think I noticed that in the database, people tend to kick the knight off of b5, and I don't know, somehow for me that always seemed kind of counterintuitive because I generally don't like to attack unprotected pieces that could be vulnerable to some sort of tactic at a later time. It also slightly weakens my dark squares. You know, I basically always played with bishop outside the pawn chain, bishop g4, traded off. But I suppose that black could play d4 here. This is some justification. I mean, I would open the long diagonal, the white square long diagonal for my bishop. I feel like they've changed something with the arrow system here. Misclicking this arrow thing a lot. So using the long diagonal, but in order to do that, I'd have to give him some squares with giving him the knight e4 outpost. And I don't know if that's the best or not, but there's certainly probably many ways black could play this position. Many different approaches. I could play something flexible like knight h6 maybe. I swear I can't draw an arrow. Knight h6. But objectively I think that bishop g4 is probably the strongest move. The simplest move. Okay. Kilitsio, my family's from Hungary. I want to make it out there soon. Why did you settle down there? Has to be for the pretty woman. No comments. I mean, I really came to Hungary originally because it's just it had traditionally a very strong culture for chess. There are long-running tournaments here. There's been a tradition of strong tournaments in Hungary for the last century basically. Chess has a lot more respect, I feel like, culturally than in the United States. And it's also affordable, or it used to be anyway, to live in Eastern Europe, but or Central Europe, as you want to call it. But this is the most common question I get, and I'm always trying to think of new creative answers for why. I know it can be strange for like a Westerner to try to understand why I live in Central Europe, but I mean, I think it was more a chess decision than anything else, and I ended up just kind of staying here even after I wasn't playing that actively. Okay, knight e2 is a sort of unusual move. I mean, it looks passive. I could play d4. Kind of a controversial idea, the d4. 92 actually makes some sense. He's like Steinitzian, reinforcing this. Could I play d4 myself? This I was thinking about earlier. Thinking too much, though, is not good for you. At this time control, thinking too much is not good for you. It's very deceptive, having like 8 minutes, thinking, oh wow, that's a lot of time. You know, I probably had this against the usual suspect. And James Plaskett. Blitz game circa like 15 years ago, I remember. Those two guys in particular. You have a lot of chess knowledge. I have a lot of chess knowledge, and I think I could, I'm still capable of improving myself. So this stream, I mean, it's not only for you guys, it's for me too. It's like a training tool for myself as well. White has the Steinitzian center. Knight on d4. Strong knight. I guess I just have to play knight e7. I wanted to be fancy here and do the Gurgenidze bishop drop back, but it's like better to develop the pieces first. I think that would be too fancy and too slow to play bishop f8 at this point. That's my plan basically, but this king h1 I think is kind of tricky. I don't really have a concrete plan per se. I mean, my pawns are on the right color. I have a strong point at d5. Hungarian women are beautiful. Oh no. Don't click on the links, guys. Don't click on any links unless it's somebody in the stream who you trust, because we have some pornographic trolls. If I post a link or the moderator or someone who we explicitly trust here, you can be sure the link is good. But if there's any question, default would be not to click any links. Knight takes d4, pawn takes. Yeah, I probably should just take here. White has a bad bishop, hemmed in by his own pawns, but he does have a very small space advantage. Now he's taking with the knight back there. I'm not really sure. I can see what he's trying to do, maybe. Perhaps make his bishop relevant. Alright. It's like a Caro-Kann Gurgenidze system. It looks very solid for white. Muleskinner is basically obsessed with closed positions to the point where he tries to force closed positions in every single game. I think for me that's very alien. You know, I'm willing to play the position, basically open positions, closed positions, in between positions, but I don't feel comfortable playing closed positions every game. It feels like part of the game is missing. There's not a lot of tactics. I like to play closed positions sometimes, but in blitz it's very hard. You need a lot of time to calculate maneuvers. It's not just like bing bing bing, you know, you're calculating captures and tactics and forks and stuff like that, which is very easy to do. I think in this kind of closed position you need a longer time control to really find like long-term plans, and I'm more comfortable playing this kind of position in a long time control. But in blitz I find it very, very tedious. It's almost impossible to play correctly or optimally with such locked positions, you really need a lot of time to plan and strategize. So Mule Skinner drives me crazy with this forcing the closed positions. Here, I don't really know what he's up to. Queen b3 seems a bit random. Queen outside the pawn chain on an exposed square. It doesn't seem like a move that's... Okay, now it's possible that he actually has a concept here. It looks crazy. I mean, he's inducing me to play b5. On the surface, it seems like he's just losing tempi. But maybe, you know, this is a very devious plan to weaken my position. But I think I'm developed enough that I can afford it. Knight e7, f5, queen b6 seems more like the plan. Queen b4, this is a bizarre move. I don't know if Mule Skinner was paying attention, but I mean, I've been waiting to do this like the entire game. Oh, he blundered? Or what is going on here? Wow. Looks like he blundered. I didn't even see this at first. Oh, yeah. Where is he coming up with these moves? This is just like comical. You're almost trapped. I mean, I could play bishop f8, and you'd have to play b4, which is like hideous positional move, but I have this. It's good that I saw that. This is getting entirely insane. My queen is on a very awkward square, but I have knight b3 here. I mean, his queen is on a very awkward square. I have knight b3 here. I win the exchange, I guess. All right. I don't know. Mule Skinner's playing this game. Very, very odd. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh my god. Like, I'm missing all sorts of moves. I don't know, I'm just entirely missing moves. Like queen c6 check, I didn't see at all. It's really fortunate that this knight on b3 is kind of a monster. Sometimes I'm not like fully awake when I start the stream. I'm missing queen c5, queen c6. Just usually overlooking these kind of moves. Now knight g5, please. He likes one-move threats. Who doesn't, right? But f6 looks good enough. Liable to miss something here. I mean, do you really want to take that bishop on c1? It's sort of hard to bring myself to do that. If I could force an absolutely clear, like, winning ending, I think I could do it. But in the meantime, we could play b4, lever the queen side, and maybe like free my rook. Mule Skinner, I don't know, man. I could never play chess like you. It's a strange style. He's getting faster. Feels like I'm in danger of losing on time. I have 23 seconds, which is not that much. Uh-oh. Rook f2. As I said, I'm trying to free my rook. So this thematically makes sense. Knight there. Okay. Obviously that's gone. And I like trading pieces here. Can pick up a pawn at the very least. Should be winning, but I'm pretty low on time. I'm liable to miss something. This has got to be winning. I have a good king, two pawns up. Pretty strong knight. Passed pawns. Oh. Look at the tricky moves he comes up with. God, he's like threatening this discovery. Alright, thank you for the game. So lots of challenges. International Master Rabbit might be back. If he is, I'll stick him in somewhere in the middle of the pack there. Constant Change is up next, 8-3. Alright, so I'm going to try to play a little bit faster. Constant Change is one of the quickest players we play. I'm feeling a little bit out of it tactically. Totally overlooked that he had queen c6 check. That's not really a good sign. Cornell Online Wiki, welcome guys. I just want to remind everyone that I have a YouTube channel I'd like to let you know about. Video Chess Training is the name of my YouTube channel, where I upload all the streams I play here, Monday to Friday streams, and also a Sunday simul every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. CET. I upload all those streams to the YouTube channel, along with usually once a week I'll do some kind of instructive video. Constant Change, it looks like he's not here. I'm going to give him like 30 seconds to show up. Also, guys, I do make my living teaching chess. I am an instructor as well as a player, and so if you're interested, I have openings for teaching seriously ambitious and serious people who really want to improve in chess. feel free to give me an email, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. Okay, Constant Change has left the building, so let's try to recall where he's at here. I'm going to abort the game. He's basically up next when he wants to be, if he comes back. Baku's 8-3. Baku's we haven't played before. You're the guy from Mozambique? Mozambique. So, check out the YouTube channel. I'd also like to thank and encourage people to support the stream and my YouTube channel via PayPal. Even a small donation, like $5 a year or even $5 a month would be awesome. And if you can't afford to support the stream or the YouTube channel with PayPal or donations of some kind, just come here, support the stream by being here, taking part, playing, analyzing with us. Baku's D4, Knight F6. Like to see the D4. I have a lot of students who play online, and it seems like E4 is predominantly much more popular than D4, and I guess that's because many beginners books teach like E4, E5 is like the first steps in the opening. But honestly, I mean, it seems like D4 is just as good a move as E4, and it's strategically just as interesting. Although positions can be more closed. I was talking about closed positions. Now Baku's plays this super solid sort of Tory attack type of scheme. I've seen Kamsky play this like a Slav reversed. Oftentimes white will play C3 followed by bishop G5 later. C3 kind of discourages stuff like C5, aggressive moves as such. You can maybe grab the pawn. But I would have liked to have played something more theoretical. The London system. This is like having its greatest period since its inception now. A lot of like these chess authors who crank out books running to like write the next masterpiece on the London system. It's such a fascinating opening. I'd rather put needles in my eyes than write a book about the London system, you know. What could be more boring than that? I can't imagine. The Accelerated London. That's like Nigel Davies' new book. Something like like it's a new idea. Rubinstein playing this in like 1910 or something. Bishop F4 on the second move. The Accelerated London. Bishop D3 here. Now, typically, this is a mistake because you're setting yourself up for E5 and E4. Like a tactical trick when I'll fork the pieces. So in most cases, you're going to want to put the bishop on E2 when I have this King's Indian type formation with the pawn on D6. If I play D5, then it's a different story. Then your bishop is probably better on D3. Having said all that, it's not so easy for me to do this kind of trick I was talking about. Okay, there's a lot of different setups. I mean, we can play like B6, bishop B7. It's basically like a réti. I'm playing, I haven't played C5 yet, but I'm trying to play a kind of réti reversed. Knight FD7 is fine here. I don't like that line plus crow. I mean, some people do that, but I don't know. It seems kind of artificial to me. I never really liked playing that way against the London system. This Knight FD7 and F5, it's okay. I guess it's fine, but never been a personal favorite of mine. He hasn't played H3, which is interesting. Maybe I could have tried to take advantage of that right away. Instead of B6, I could have played like something extreme like Knight H5, Bishop G5, H6, Bishop H4, G5. But it does involve kind of weakening my king side. I like the double fianchetto. I feel comfortable playing the ready because I played it a lot with white. I have a kind of hang-up about playing Knight FD7 in the King's Indian. It feels like you're undeveloping, and I've noticed that in my chess career, I've had very little success trying to like attack the London system with some kind of F5, E5 type of stuff. It's pretty durable, but I realize that's a variation that's probably playable. Queen E2. Still, I don't have anything with E5. ATM. Alright, I mean, one thing I probably do with A6 is stop exchanges with bishop A6. I'm not sure white would want to do that, but anyway, he'll probably play A4 when I could meet it with A6 anyway. It's a lot of anyways in one sentence. I don't know, it's more important that you play a position that you understand. C5, Queen B6. Yeah. Yes. Yes, this is definitely an alternative. The question is taking on C5. I'm not sure what the status of that is. But generally speaking, C5. It's just that, you know, I'm not really used to doing that when white's already played C3. Of course I play C5, Queen B6 if white hasn't played C3 yet. But when he's got C3, and I'm concerned that he can play some kind of like accepted D takes C5 type of thing. I don't know what the exact deal with that is. Here, I would imagine I can play E5 tactically somehow. I'm not so sure, actually. Well, we can play knight H5 and E5. For sure. It's not necessarily ideal. I wanted to play this, but I don't see how it's going to work tactically. E5, D takes E. Actually, it's quite interesting. It is actually quite interesting. E5. I don't have to put my knight. If I put my knight in H5, the knight's... This is playable, but... He can go back to E3 there. If I play E5 right away, maybe we can make something work. Bacchus. I mean, these pieces prone to some sort of tactics. This is a new account? Yeah, it's a pretty new account. I don't know if he's really from Mozambique, but people like to Can you cut everyone to me? Of course. What are lines for? We'll just cut to whoever wants to play first. You know, just... Whoa, I have to take here. Okay. Las Haziar... What? That's interesting. The laundry pods. So this is my happy surprise for you. The tactics are flying. I'm pretty, how to say, flexible. You know, I'm capable of playing tactically or strategically different kind of positions, and I guess somehow I do prefer open positions. But I don't consider myself to be a tactician or a positional player. I think I'm kind of middle of the road and capable of doing both. Yeah, that's a really interesting observation, Laz Hazior. That's exactly, we were just all in suspense when you told us about the laundry thing. Master Wasabi, Vasilikos, Haggard DK. We lost Constant Change. Maybe his internet went out. Gladys Troll. My Russian is really, really Poruski. Bishop G5. Wow. How does that work? Oh no. This looks like it has to lose for white. I mean, queen takes G5, knight takes D7. His knight is basically trapped. His knight is like trapped on D7. Straight up. Not to mention knight F4, which looks pretty nasty, but yeah, it's just straight up trapped. Nowhere to go. So what's the best way to do this? This move looks pretty interesting. It sort of suggests itself. White's options in replying to that move would be somewhat limited. You can also just play rook and f to d8. I don't think there's any problem with that. But either way, I mean, I can just like knock out this bishop on d3 and then pin his queen to his knight, pin his knight to his queen to be more precise. It looks like the only move he has is like h4. If I play rook d8. I mean, the simplest solution is to just play knight takes bishop. Knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop, queen takes knight, rook f d8. We're going to win a piece here. Maybe I have something better, but I mean, basically, if he plays knight takes f8 there, I didn't mention that my knight can come back to e5. Actually, I can take on d2. Maybe he should have tried knight takes f8 though. Objectively, that was a better try. Well, bishop c6, I guess now. Well, in any case, he's going to play like knight f3 there. So I guess it doesn't matter. I think Baku's just plays too quickly. That is a kind of weakness that we see here. That's quite prevalent. Yeah, if you guys can just speak in English in the chat, because nobody can understand. We try to keep the English and the chat in basically one language. Queen e7, bishop c6, and we win a piece. He'll have only one pawn for a piece. So, guys, tomorrow I play a different kind of stream where I'm playing unusual openings. Same time control, just we like to experiment with gambits, unusual openings, and so forth on Wednesdays to mix it up a little bit. Next challenge is Master Wasabi, Vasilikos, Haggard DK. If Robran comes back, we will definitely play him. So it was important that I have this move. I mean, basically, if I don't have that, I'm not winning. You know, I'm probably losing. There's not anything in between. I mean, I'm down a pawn here, so we have to have bishop c6, triple attack the knight on d7. This has to be protected in case of discoveries and whatnot, but he's losing a piece here. Basically, I think white just went off the rails when I played e5 and he took. You know, he just can't take this pawn. I mean, this is just not... It's a poisoned pawn. Can't draw an arrow. It's a poisoned pawn. I guess you could try to take with a bishop, but it doesn't look very good. Bishop takes, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, e4. Actually, you know, it might not have been that bad for white to take with the bishop there. I'm sure that I can find something to make it interesting, but that's actually a reasonable try. e5. Okay. Well, try to keep it simple here with just 30 seconds left. Monster bishops. Absolutely monster bishops. If knight takes f8, then it would be like 2 minor pieces for a rook. Good question. It was more complicated than that, though. You know, there was all sorts of in-between moves and tactics. I'm sure I could find something there. Master Wasabi. This is not a new player. We did play them once, though. I don't recall that. That was probably quite a long time ago. Let's play e4. We have not played e4 yet today. I like to play different. Vodes 1976 wants to customize his chess clock so they'd be at the right. At the right, like the streamer has. Yay. Well, you got to go in options, I guess. You guys can help him with that. Is Ebonics allowed? English only. I don't think that Ebonics is a language. It's a made-up concept. Knight f3. Alright, guys. d4. Alright, open Sicilian. Let's see what we can do. I'm not really that booked up. Thinking about getting a... I'm actually thinking... I'm playing a GM tournament in February. Sorry, April. I'll try to start over again. I am playing Grandmaster, a closed Grandmaster tournament. The 1st of April, April Fool's Day, starting. So I won't necessarily be streaming as much the first week of April, because I am going to play in a closed tournament and here in Budapest. And my openings are really lousy. So I'm thinking of actually hiring a specialist to help me prepare for my games, because that's the one really bad weakness I have. I feel like my opening repertoire is probably the only reason why I never made the GM title. The main reason. There are some other small reasons, like having a bad hangover before important games and stuff like that. But no, seriously, I think my opening repertoire is my weakest phase, and basically I'm gonna get some help with maybe an individual game preparation. So we'll see what happens. Well, I'm not really going for the GM title. I'm just getting back to playing maybe some strong tournaments from time to time. See where it goes from there. I don't think that it's like a concrete path. If I can make a GM Norm or two in the next couple of years, then I'll make a really concerted effort, you know. But I think at this point, it's just like kind of, let's play a couple strong tournaments and see where we stand. Master Wasabi. Now, I was under the impression that e5, bishop e5 check was the move, but I'm not 100% certain. I know this is the best for white. I think this is the way, though, you're supposed to play. So I was talking to somebody who's kind of an openings expert, and he's not a really strong player, but I thought he would be helpful because he's kind of the opposite of me. Like, he's very, very strong in opening preparation and like weaker in other phases. That's why he's not a great player, but he is kind of a good second. So this guy might be able to help me, and that could make a difference, some results, if I can really get some good openings in my games. Knight to c5. White's got the ironclad control of d5 here. I'm definitely liking this. It's a classic d5 in the Sicilian. The most instructive chess games ever played. There's one game in there by Chernev where he goes into great depth. I don't remember. It was like a Boleslavsky game, I think, where Boleslavsky just owned the d5 square. Even Boleslavsky sacrificed a pawn, I think, in that particular game. Now g6. g6 is a good move. My knight has only 2 squares, one of which sucks, and the other which interferes with my development. Although the square is bad, it has some redeeming features, like it does support the e4 pawn. Okay, well, we're going to go to e3. It's a better square in general. But black's position looks hokey, but actually maybe it's not. Maybe it's playable. I don't know. It doesn't look great. But on the other hand, only time will tell. Master Wasabi. You have a massive backwardness along the d file. Problem with the d5 square, but you have stopped me from playing like bishop g5, which was my main idea. If you cooperated there, like with some routine move like knight f6, I mean, it's basically game over. I mean, I think strategically, if he plays this knight f6 like a lot of beginners would play, bishop g5, and I think strategically it's just lost for black. So it was very important that he doesn't do that. You know, he doesn't play a routine move there. Now he did knight f6. It's not so bad because I can't play bishop g5, pinning that piece. Master Wasabi. Francais. Okay. Threatening my pawn at e4. Aha. Not really sure. It is, of course, possible to play f3, but the move, it just kind of leaves me in a passive sort of position. Generally, I often talk about defending pawns with pawns, but if I play the move f3, it restricts my queen. It restricts my pieces in general. It's not really Not really happy about that. Now this actually could be a miscalculation by black. I have knight d5. Okay, so he just takes on d5. I take back on d5. Then he takes on c1. I mean, I could play knight e5, knight takes d5, and bishop takes h6, but that doesn't look that convincing either. It's quite a sketchy looking setup for black, but I don't see any concrete way to bust it. Strategically, he has some idea, like this is an indirect way of controlling d5 by taking control of the knight on e3, or threatening the knight on e3. Still, he's left with backwardness. Maybe I should just castle. He plays castles. I play knight d5. He takes on c1, and like I have nothing. Whereas if I play knight d5, the best case scenario, I get like a check on f6 that doesn't do anything here. I think we have to just hang tough and keep the tension. I don't know about this. It's pretty amazing, but black looks like he's completely okay here, violating what looks like fundamental principles with this early e5 and weakness of the d5 square. He's just getting away with it. I don't see what I can do. Hanging piece on h6, vulnerable knight on f6, blocking his f-pawn. The knight on c5, kind of weird, exposed to attack, but there's nothing I can do. I don't have any kind of tactics that are good for me here. Just don't see anything. I have no pressure on his pawn on d6. Now knight d5 might be something. Knight d5. I cannot draw a straight arrow. Knight to d5. Bishop takes c1. Knight takes f6 check. King g7. Knight check. Pawn takes. Rook takes. A better structure. I guess the very best I can do is this kind of accelerated dragon trick where he has a bad structure at the end of the day. Don't see anything better. Take on f6 check. He has to play king g7. If I recapture, he takes with the queen. If I trade into the ending, I have some kind of micro advantage. Okay, this is just a terrible move. You have to play bishop takes c1. I play knight takes f6 check. You play king g7. I play knight h5 check. You take. I take back on c1. I guess it's ugly for black, but I thought maybe that's the best alternative. So now you're back in that classic situation that's pretty bad. You know, I'm not sure how bad that, you know, said position was with having to take on h5. His structure is ruined. His king's a little bit open. But in a Sveshnikov type of situation, it might not be that bad. Now, at the moment, I don't have a way to increase the pressure here. I can play queen h3 though. What does this move even do? This is probably a mistake. I thought he should get out of the pin with queen a5 there, but maybe I had some kind of tactic with b4. b4, queen a3, and then some sort of discoveries. I don't think it would have worked. We'd be back in that same trick again. Like b4, and maybe I trap his queen. b4, rook b1, rook b3. Alright, rook c8. Master Wasabi pretty tough. I still want him to get out of the pin. Don't want him to get out of the pin. He has some interesting moves here still. b5 type of ideas. Perhaps rook c4. Exchange sacrifice. Doesn't seem like it's going to work. I'm not sure it's enough, whatever he does. I mean, even like b5, knight takes b5, rook takes c2. That might be something, but rook e8 looks, Airtem. I understand. And the perverse defense here with rook e6. To be sadomasochistic to play that, but I think he has to. I mean, it's actually very hard for me to attack that piece on e6. It's quite safe on a white square. I'm thinking about f4, but I think white needs to play this in a way that I can kind of keep a stable positional advantage, not expect to win material necessarily here. If I could just keep control of the d5 square. Maybe I'm getting a little too committed. If I play f4, it just opens the floodgates to the position getting really, really random. And maybe a king h1 and then f4. I definitely expected rook e6 there. Master Wasabi's problem is time. There's rook e6. So now f4. Threatening f5. F5 is the problem. He's just dropping a piece. Well, Master, I think you had sufficient defensive resources. You just kind of like couldn't decide on sticking with one. Like rook e6 first, you know, and then you can like take on f4 maybe. Okay, I'm sure that black was never quite fully equal, but the critical question really would have been, if we take a very quick look here, I don't really want to analyze the games in depth, but just I want to take a quick look at that position where, you know, he had the knight on the bishop on h6. I'm curious here. Is this how bad is this? Oh, it's saying knight takes d5. Wow. It wants to sack the exchange. So this is really bad according to the engine. Bishop takes, knight takes f6 check, king g7, knight h5 check. I mean, this was the main line basically, where I wasn't that sure, but strategically he's pretty messed up. I mean, this is a pretty damaging kind of situation. I guess he could play though. He's not lost necessarily. Queen g5. But the computer had an interesting suggestion, which I did see as well. I just didn't really think it was good enough for black. It had an interesting suggestion to sack the exchange here. Knight takes d5, bishop takes h6, knight takes c3, bishop takes f8, and knight takes e4. It's hard to believe this is good enough for black, but it's threatening like b4. It might actually be enough. But I don't know. I have some doubts about this. Alright, guys. Vasilikos, Haggard DK. Constant Change is back. Let's give him one more chance. Knight b5. I don't know about knight b5. The knight is on c3. How can you play c4? Jump over the knight. It's a new kind of chess. Pawns are jumping like knights. Constant Change. I missed you the first time. I think you would have been black. So you tricked me to getting white, but I'm a little afraid he's not here again. We're gonna give him like 45 seconds. Filthy sea bass. Anyway, guys, welcome to my stream. We're playing Blitz Classical Chess with viewers, with live commentary here. We do have 5 challenges at the moment. We have about an hour and 10 minutes left, so I think that will probably be about it for the stream. International Master Rabren said he might come back, but I'm not sure. We'll see. We might get through these challenges and play like one more. Definitely possible. Constant Change does not seem to be here. Alright, we're not going to waste time. Don't have enough time to waste. Vasilikos is going to play white against us. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. We also appreciate donations via PayPal. If you like the stream, enjoy watching, it's instructive, then please donate to support the stream on my YouTube channel via PayPal. Also, I do offer personalized training. If you guys are really serious about getting better, don't hesitate to contact me. My email is videochesstrainer@gmail.com. Alright guys, tomorrow is, we've got another player who's not moving. Vasilikos was definitely here. But, I noticed, I don't know, maybe it's worldwide. My internet seems very slow today. My ping is 42 now. It was much higher. It was like 90 something. It's better now. Man, everybody's not accepting their challenges. Okay. Okay, we had a request to play the Sicilian earlier. They were disappointed. Pawn Spanker was disappointed I didn't play the Sicilian. Against Vasilikos. Normally I play like classical Sicilian or accelerated dragon, but let's play like something else, different. E6 Sicilian. which I don't normally feature in my repertoire. Although I used to play it. I used to play e6 exclusively back way in the past. d4, take, knight f6. Also, I've experimented with the Con Sicilian, which is probably better than knight f6 objectively. Maybe I should play that. I don't know the theory that well, whereas I know the Scheveningen pretty well. It's kind of a passive variation for black, though. I had many scary games in Scheveningens. Eventually gave it up because it's just too hard for black to play. Blue Crow says Con. I don't really play Bullet, no, Chaos Master. I want to improve my game, and I think Bullet is just like kind of a waste of time. d6, chess without thinking is probably unlikely to improve your game. Yeah, this is a funny move. I was always stunned by this move. It was underanalyzed in books I had about the Scheveningen. I have noticed it has been played more and more recent. Some high-level players have played this move, which was considered to be kind of a-theoretical. All I know is that I recently analyzed a game that Grandmaster Paschall from Croatia, who's a big expert in the, of all things, the classical Sicilian with knight f6 and knight c6. Paschall played here h6, which is interesting. If I play a6, I'm actually transposing to the Najdorf. If I play knight c6, we're transposing to a Richter-Rauser. Now, another move that might be okay for black here is probably bishop e7. But I don't think that we want to just transpose to a mainline Najdorf or Richter-Rauser. That's no way to take advantage of white's move order. I'm just going to copy what Paschall did. You know, he played h6 and bishop e7, keeping it out of the realm of either the Najdorf or the classical Sicilian. And now f4. Now we have some interesting possibilities here. Very interesting possibilities. f4 is a super aggressive move. First of all, we have to check this tactic, knight takes e4. It usually doesn't work, but in this particular position, there's a chance it works because he's opened up his check. Knight takes e4, bishop takes e7, knight takes c3. Bishop takes d8, knight takes d1. And my knight can like get back through e3. Weird situation. I think we got to play for interesting chess here. What would Grandmaster Leonid Stein do if he was still alive today? He got tricked once, still won, but had to swindle and some time scramble. Plan for white is queen d2 usually, yes. Yes, actually, Chaos Master, I can improve my game by playing lower-rated players. Lower-rated players, higher-rated players, players around the same rating. They can all improve my game. We can learn something from any game. We spend a lot of time analyzing. But I'm not going to learn anything by playing 1-minute chess against anybody. Just an absolute waste of time. If you have time to waste and nothing else to do, I guess it's an exciting way to pass the time, but focused on improving here. F takes g5, and now the question is where to move the knight. h7 or d7. Theoretically, I could play knight g8, but it doesn't have much feature. But I think I made a mistake here. I had some kind of hallucination that I had an extra tempo that I don't have. That's a very serious problem. So now I'm going to have to take back on g5 for lack of a better move. And this was not my plan. I just sacrificed the pawn for insufficient compensation. You just sacrificed the pawn for insufficient compensation. Is there anything we could do? Knight h7, bishop g3 is the problem. Bearing down on the d6 pawn, and I'm gonna have to get annihilated with knight to b5. That's serious. That's pretty serious. Why Liechtenstein? Well, he liked to play this, you know, kind of idea with g5 and take the e5 square. In classical Sicilians. But I guess all Soviet grandmasters in the late 60s and 70s, it was pretty commonplace in like the Najdorf and stuff. Oh man, we really blew this. Wow, so you can just take. Okay, we're just busted, I guess. I don't know why I hallucinated I had an extra move or something. Knight d7. No, wait a minute. Maybe I can play knight d7. It's really, really iffy. It just might work. Then we have other problems. We have to calculate this. Oh man. Spassky-esque sacrifices. Take, check, king f8. Bishop somewhere. I mean, it's like a Najdorf. I don't know. This looks like the only way I can play this. I may be lost here. Yeah, I'm down to 2 minutes. Well, Blue Crow's like time. I mean... it's not going to matter how much time if my position is just easily lost, so I want to avoid this is a surprising move, queen f3 though. That seems unnecessarily slow for white. Plus I've got knight e5 with tempo. I take on g5. Just thankfully I'm alive here. Vasilikos had this very scary sacrifice with knight takes e6. But I think it might have been best to just play like queen h5. If you play queen h5 instead of queen f3, I mean... Okay, there I have knight e5. I'm barely like breathing in that position, I think. Queen f3 is a huge mistake. I'm basically almost lost, or possibly lost, but queen f3 can't be the right move. The other interesting move, well, it's got to be queen h5. I mean, you could sacrifice a piece with knight takes e6. Knight takes e6, f takes e6, queen h5 check, king f8, but I didn't see a win for white. Bishops anywhere, 95, defending f7 and g6. Looks like a Najdorf. Anyway, that looks nasty though. Queen h5 immediately. Okay, I still have knight e5. There he might have... He actually might have difficulty finding a win, but he could just castle or something, for example. It looks really dodgy for black. But I mean, here we're... I think here we're basically okay now. We got the e5 square for the knight, and we're gonna have a lot of shelter for the king in the center, and play a6. Black should be okay now. Man, queen h5 was just awful. It looked awful for black. Take on g5 with the bishop after? Yeah, I can take on g5 after. Yes. Okay. But it's just knight takes e6. I can't do it right away. Yeah, maybe if we analyze that, queen h5, bishop takes g5, he might have something simple there, like bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, queen takes g5, pawn takes g5, knight b5. But I could probably sacrifice a pawn. Although how? Yeah, knight a6. It looks bad though. It looks really bad. Maybe just that simple, like trading on g5 twice and playing. Trade on g5 twice and play knight b5. Speaking of knight b5, we have to be careful. But I like my chances as opposed to a short time ago. I think I was close to toast. Black's pretty good here, I think. The e5 square, I mean, that's the basic concept behind playing g5 in any sort of Sicilian, undermining the e5 square. There was a tournament in 1993, I think. Maybe I'm misremembering. It was like 93 or 95, Plugievsky Memorial. It was just a Sicilian thematic tournament with most of the best players in the world. Lots of fantastic games. Here I guess we have to develop our pieces. Vasilikos, you're kind of scary attacker. Well, you are from Greece, okay. I thought you were from Greece, and then I was like, for some reason, not thinking you were. What does a6 do to help? I mean, a6 here? a6 is just keeping the knight and bishops off of b5, which is going to get access to that d6 pawn. a6 is just a standard move. I'm not sure if he was talking about this exact position, asking about a6, but I can only go on my best guess. Now is interesting. We could take either way on e5. But I think fundamentally, probably better to take with the knight. Open the C file for me. They get some counterplay. Have a strong knight on e5. But it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to play d takes e5. I think we're on the right track. Have a lot of time issues here, but I like my game. It may seem kind of alien to some of you, but if you have enough experience in the Sicilian, you'll understand this position is quite viable for black. Ultimately, I have the better pawn structure, and he's got 3 pawn islands, isolated pawn. This is a very, very risky thing to do, but makes some sense somehow. You know, it is a very strong knight on e5, so I guess there's some justification to playing that. Well, I'm about to lose on time, so I'd really rather not lose on time. Black is better, but it's not that easy. I mean, bishop takes e5 is very, very risky move for white strategically. If he could trade the white square bishops magically and play with like knight against bad bishop, I guess life would be alright. It's important that I have d5 under control. Yeah, I can't play anything too fancy here. I'd love to play f5 and just start an avalanche with those pawns, but first of all, I trade off his weak pawn on e4, and I think secondly, I would give him possible access to the d5 square if I play f5. So we're going to err on the side of caution here. There is this sort of saying that all endgames are good for black in the Sicilian, because white has a tendency to overextend themselves when they're trying to attack black, and usually in the endgame black is better. Not so much the case here. White hasn't gone crazy, you know, like weakening his king side or anything. But generally speaking, I like... I'm just doing this because I'm really, really low on time. Normally I'm not just looking for exchanges, but trying to find a move here with very little time. I like my ending though. I like this ending with 2 bishops against bishop and knight. Actually, it's kind of bad bishop for white. No, that's unfortunate. I think I misplayed this a bit. But we're still pretty good. You know, now e5, f5, excuse me. Black is better. It's hardly an easy win. Such time pressure. just blundered. I just made a funny blunder and reversed the order of moves. Whatever. Okay, I lose. I just reversed the order of moves. I meant to check on E1 first, check on D1 first, and then play bishop takes B2, which was unclear. But I played the other order of moves. Bishop takes B2 first. Now this was a critical situation here, where we just blundered with this hallucination. After queen takes G5, he had some good counterplay, but I'm supposed to play check first. Check D1, and then play bishop takes B2. And I played bishop takes B2 first, realizing that I just hung a piece. Here, though, I overlooked queen C5 check. Apparently I'm better. My intention was to play this. That was what I thought, but he has a draw here with a repetition. So what I wanted to do in time pressure was play the other order of moves. But apparently that was only a draw. Here I could actually win. I didn't have time to see it. You know, like queen check and maybe bishop d6, keeping the pieces on the board. But it's too hard to see that with very little time. So unfortunately the game is kind of marred there by ridiculous time pressure. Constant change. I'm going to give you like one last chance to play, man. But you played well. You played well. Just that it was really badly played by both of us in the last moment. A good game, more or less, marred by, you know, it's like people ask me, why didn't you play bullet chess? Have you watched any grandmasters playing bullet? They're just like dropping pieces every move. I mean, is that like, it's embarrassing, like, to watch like strong players just hang pieces against each other. Like, how does that benefit anybody? Honestly, it's not even entertaining. It's like embarrassing to watch grandmasters just dropping pieces, playing horrible chess. Yeah, no, I just interposed the moves. This is a very typical mistake when you're calculating combinations. Many people make a finger failure, or my case, it wasn't a finger failure, it was reversing the moves in my mind. But happens a lot. Okay, the old Indian. God, it's so tedious to play this. Dynamic Chess Strategy by Grandmaster Mihai Suba is a book where he's basically going over his games, his favorite games and his favorite kind of openings. But one of them is the Old Indian. The Suba gives like maybe 1 or 2 games that he played in the Old Indian for white, for whatever reason. It's hard to learn how to play the white side of the Old Indian, you know, because it's an opening and it's not really discussed in you know, many places. Constant change playing the Old Indian. It's a little bit difficult because it's passive. If you play the Philidor, I think that you probably have to play the Old Indian too in many cases. Yeah, look at the Centipon lost for the average bullet game, even between 2 grandmasters. It's like outrageous. What? It's just people doing that, because I think one of the reasons why a lot of GMs play bullet games, honestly, is, I know this was the case, and not just GMs, I mean chess players, it's like your ego doesn't have to be put on the line, you know. If you're playing, oh, it's just a bullet game, you know, so you can always say, like, it was just a bullet game. You see, when they play 5-minute or longer games, people have to start to put their ego on the line. When it's a bullet game, like Larry Christensen would just be like, oh, it was just a bullet game. I just, you know. So I think that a lot of grandmasters have, and all players, you know, have big egos, and I think it's easy to like not put your ego on the line. When it's like a 1-minute chess, you can just throw it away, you know. So I think that's one thing to consider, the popularity of, but it's more like a drug addiction, I think, the 1-minute chess. But possible that I was thinking about this last week. You just don't have to put your ego on the line, you know. It's a 1-minute game. It doesn't matter. You can laugh it off when you lose. If it's a longer time control, it's not so easy to laugh it off when you lose. And the ego starts to get hurt. You start dropping some games against another player. For a lot of strong players, it's very important. Their ego doesn't get damaged. Queen c7. I don't know. You know, sometimes it goes to like b8. I mean, we could just go with a4 here. It's certainly logical. I don't have a lot of time. I mean, it just seems ridiculous to talk about bullet chess and then say I don't have a lot of time. But objectively, 6 minutes is a blitz game. It seems like more instinctual chess. Yeah, I think it could help instinctually, making you do bad things instinctually. It definitely helps instinctually, but unfortunately it goes bad ways. And both ways, good and bad habits will be developed instinctually. I think you'd be better off, like, you know, probably playing chess on the influence of psychedelic substances on a regular basis if you want to improve your instinctual chess. It's more like reflexes, intuition. But I don't have a problem with blitz, you know, and like 3-minute I think would be the kind of cutoff, realistically, for the game to be kind of useful, in my opinion. And even 3-minute degenerates into just a mouse clicking contest, you know, which seems rather uninteresting. Anyway, guys, we're going to be back tomorrow with Weird Wednesday when I play more unusual openings. We try to play gambits, stuff not normally in the repertoire, just to mix it up and make it a little bit more fun. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. CET. Constant Change is thinking more than usual today. It's very strange. Speaking of bullet chess, Constant Change is usually playing like using the whole, you know, playing the whole game in 1 minute. He's maybe taking my advice here, taking his time, or perhaps he's just distracted. Okay, knight b6. This is kind of a strange move in a way, but he wants to open up the bishop on c8. I mean, I think that classically speaking, Black normally would want to maintain like the strong point, but I think he's thinking about developing his bishop on c8 in this concrete position. I don't want to move. I mean, I want to move my bishop. I don't want to let him trade my bishop off, obviously. But I'm a little concerned about bishop to g4 and how I'm going to get out of that pin. So I suppose we might have to play bishop back to e2 in this spot. Not the most aggressive move in the world, but it does get in the way of things. It gets in the way of the rook. Maybe I'm overreacting, but bishop g4 is just going to be very, very difficult for me to get out of that pin otherwise. So I think we have to be practical here and realize this is a real problem. If I play a natural move like bishop b3 or bishop a2, more natural move, keeping this bishop on this nice long diagonal, nice arrow me, but seriously, what does it do here? I mean, f7 is protected. It looks nice, but now he played bishop b7. Strange to play knight b6 and then bishop b7. Also losing control of f5. Structurally, white is good. This looks good now. I'm really happy to see bishop b7. On the other hand, breaking down this kind of position. The other day I was preparing for an opponent who played the Philidor, and thinking about these kind of positions akin to the Philidor. This could be a Philidor, basically. You got your position, now what? You know, do I isolate this pawn and kind of, not isolate it, but do I clarify the structure in the center here? How about developing my pieces? Bishop e3, bishop g5, bishop b2. Bishop b2 has its merits. Tricky situation with a lot of tension in the position. That's why I have problems playing the old Indian. The white side of the old Indian in this kind of time control or any closed position is just really, really hard to play well. A lot of tension here. I'm thinking about knight h4, bishop e3, bishop b2, h3, taking on e5. Trying to find a move that ultimately makes sense. I could play h3, bishop f1, g3, kind of standard formation for me, actually. You know, ultimately now he's going to put pressure on e4, the rook, classic old Indian. One of the reasons why I played h3 was to keep his knight off of g4 so I could play bishop e3, but now it's looking like I've got to contend with pressure on that pawn. So he plays bishop f8. No obvious weak point in the black position at this moment. I can play bishop g5 here, then he'll go back, and then what will I have achieved? A little concerned about my queen unprotected on c2. This is a reasonable move here. Both down to 2.5 minutes, guys. We have time for 2 more games at least for today. International Master Rabran did not get back. It looks like Haggard DK and Kyria Kospes would be the one question IQ test always shows up kind of at the end of the stream. He's getting bubbled all the time. So here if pawn takes pawn, I don't see anything with knight takes. I would just take with the bishop. White stands a little bit better structurally. This is a safe move for black. A tidbit passive. Alright, so now what? Super Salad. That was a restaurant in Boston. I was thinking super solid. Black is pretty super solid here. These queens are... Maybe I could have put my queen on d2, but it seems like the e4 pawn isn't really that well protected. Uh-huh. Okay. Alright, I understand. Very nice. Alright, I've had enough of my queen on c2. This I've talked about before. It is kind of Philidor, typical Philidor theme. Incredible tension here. I feel like now we should be able to force something. The ultimate old Indian player. Still, we don't have much. That's how durable this opening is for black. Thinking knight h4. This is like a maneuver I would have tried to get in the Philidor. There are some tactical possibilities. So now, this is complicated. I mean, I can take on e5. He takes on c4, I take on f6. Or I can take on d5 3 times. And I'm afraid of the taking on d5 3 times is just going to be like massive liquidation. But maybe... Oh, I see. Yeah, this is probably good for me. I mean, he can't play like takes on b4. When is he going to take on b4? I don't think he has time to capture this pawn. So ultimately, I mean, ultimately he's just dropping the pawn. Oh, I see. Right, I missed this move. It's too deep for me to see that far. But rook takes c8. Tactics are easy. It's strategic play that's difficult. Squares, please. a5, b3. So we managed to hang on to this pawn, which might just win the game. Bishop takes, rook takes rook, knight takes rook. He's got queen c1. Maybe it's safer to take with a knight. There's also rook c1. I think we should just err on the side of caution here. Queen b7. Okay, man, I'm getting out of this pin. Maybe it's not necessary. I should just play b5. Managed to keep our extra pawn. The outside a pawn may be enough to win the game. And trading queens is... Question is, now knight takes actually might be better. Easier for me to keep this pawn on b5. Easier for me to hold the pawn. So fast. Oh, I have a plan. Wow. What? He's very good at moving fast, but he's actually not calculating that much. So he misses stuff. This looks pretty bad. We're good to go. The smoke is cleared. Bit by bit, we should be able to win it. Okay, it's not that easy with the pawns on the same side, but... Clear piece up. H5. He's got, yuck. Yuck. Melting down. Okay, constant change. Tough game. Thank you. Alright, guys. Last two games for today. Haggard DK, Kyrgios. Is Wednesday your lucky day? 3 wins in a row. I was generous with the last one, Pukro. I just kind of resigned. I was slightly worse. I just didn't like my position. It was chess 960 for those of you who are watching the chat there. And Pukro twice beat me in time scrambles, but in the last game it was an insipid position I just didn't like, so I kind of prematurely resigned, but not take it away from him. He has 3 wins in a row. I was just kind of disgusted with my positional disadvantage and just resigned a little early. I wasn't down any material. I mean, Haggard DK. Don't remember if he played here in the Blitz stream or if it was Simul. So it was Blitz games. Guys, don't forget I have a Simul on Sundays. Every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. CET. That's Greenwich Mean Time +1. Basically all of Europe, or the most of Central Europe. Most of Europe, period. E6. Normally I don't play this move, but I don't know. We'll play this move order today. Try something fun. You encounter different stuff here. I mean, some people play bishop b4, some people play d5, some people play c5. But generally speaking, if I encountered this in a tournament, I'd normally respond with d4 or play, maybe play the reti with like g3. I am generous. Knight c6. Well, okay, knight c6 actually is fine. I guess there's a question about e4 though. d4 transposes to a kind of nimzo, and what else can we do really? g3, keeping it in the Catalan family. We had a game like that yesterday actually. g3, d5, d4. There he could take on c4 though. We had a different move order in my game yesterday. We could play d4, bishop b4, bishop d2, or d4, bishop b4, queen c2, transposing to a nimzo. And then finally, we could play e4. I mean, this is actually probably the critical move. I don't know if this is book, but if you want to try to punish knight c6, I guess this would be your best try. It's kind of just transposed to some kind of... There is this guy I played 2 months ago, Frank Ferenc. It's a Hungarian FIDE master, like an old guy, who plays really weird setups based on like knight f6, knight c6, e6, bishop d7, h6, g6. He just like doesn't commit himself and tries to get like a King's Indian type of formation. So I'm saying like if e4, d6, maybe d4, he could play a kind of two knights tango or what have you. Now bishop e4, well, that's fine, but what about e5 now? You're going to play knight g4, but I have d4 after that, and black's position looks a little bit suspicious. Yeah, I think that this is slightly suspicious for black. I mean, knight c6, e4, maybe he has to try some bizarre move like d5, French motif. I think that's probably, you know, or else just lose a tempo with e5, but I don't trust that too much. It looks like d5 with a kind of weird Flor Mykonos variation. And now we take back either way, in fact. That's a big question. Which way to take back, because they're both plausible. This way opens up my bishop very quickly, and the other way is bringing another pawn toward the center. So I think it's kind of a tough decision. They're both so good, I don't know which one to play. Very strong piece pressure with d takes, and strong pawn center after b takes. I'm more of a pawn center kind of guy. So, yeah, this would definitely qualify as an unorthodox opening, weird Wednesday material. Knight c6. I think I've played the two knights tango on occasion. Wish I could play queen g4 right about now. Bishop d3. Also interesting is bishop a3. It's a little like a Winnower French, but that's probably not best. I don't want to commit this piece. It has very good range from its initial square. The queen's bishop is the one piece that normally can remain on its initial square. Korchnoi playing white in Englishes so many times, like Victor would transfer his rook laterally, like rook a2 across. I'm never moving the bishop on c1. By the way, I reference Korchnoi here because he was a really great English opening player, and this is basically an English opening. Kind of like one of his favorite systems was the Flor Mykonos variation. Alright, well, let's just develop. We could go postal with like h4. I like that too. Maybe just leave my king in the center or play like king f1 later. Another idea that Victor the Terrible would probably enjoy. Queen e2. Well, we're a little bit better, but it's not that easy. Debatable whether to take on d6 or let him take on e5. White stands slightly better, but it's not that exciting. You know what? I mean, we should seriously consider taking with the pawn here. As ugly as that might seem, he's very restricted. Very, very restricted after that. Maybe it's just not quite enough. Looks nasty though for black. Pawn takes, bishop a3. Alright, we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to keep it clean, but bishop takes definitely. I mean, pawn takes with the idea of bishop a3, it's pretty interesting. I'm only taking this way because I don't have time to calculate complications. This was my original plan. Unfortunately, black's almost okay. And we are even trading off his bad knight on c6, which this is ultimately a good thing for black. The knight's blocking his c-pawn and its ability to control the center. I think it's good for him to exchange that piece off. How to prepare for a 7-round open with 120 players, 60 plus 30 time control. Well, Mule Skinner, I mean, you're going to try to play some longer training games, I would think. If you're not used to playing that time control, you need to play some. Bring water. Yeah, if there's no water, you're reminding me. Recent Budapest Team Championship where there was no drinks available, like tap water to drink. Oh no. Yeah, we got the queen. The queen position we've been longing for. I don't know how you can bring yourself to play 97, man. I mean, you've got no development, and that's strong knight on e5. This is a very, very unhealthy idea for black to play knight e7. You're basically blocking your own pieces. You don't have room to move. For example, why not knight takes e5, queen takes e5, like queen f6 or something. There you drop a pawn. Alright, then just play takes knight f6. Black's in trouble no matter what here, admittedly. He's not equalizing too easily. Now, probing for weaknesses. Irreparable damage on the black dark squares. Whew, it looks bad. This extra pawn here, this double pawn, makes the center pretty good. It's falling apart. But the last straw was 97. I mean, that's just too passive. I don't see any mates. We're going to want to open up his king, though. Don't want him to get away. Don't want him to have time to get away here. Yeah, that's mate in one, right? I'm notoriously good at mate in ones. Mate in twos or beyond. That's too much. Okay, this is probably last game against Kyrgios. Dropped an equality. You dropped an exchange, Mule Skinner. Kyrgios. Yeah, I think that training with long time controls. Back in the day, I used to play computers, like long games. I think you might want to set up a chessboard if you're playing these like games online to practice. You might want to practice with three-dimensional pieces, because I think there's a kind of difference if you're not used to it. If you're playing like a long training game online, set up the board next to the computer, and then, you know, when you get to a certain point, like let's say when you have 15 or 10 minutes left, you can switch to playing, you know, playing on just the screen. Kyrgios, what do I want to do against you? It's not Weird Wednesday. I'll save the Budapest Gambit for tomorrow. He's got a bad score against me, but Kyrgios does play strategically well in certain openings, like King's Indian. He's beaten me once or twice, I think. And once I lost when I played the Birds opening against him. Another strategic kind of game. Here, knight f3 takes the fun out of it. I like to play the ending after knight c3, e5. But this is a different story. Okay, for something different. In a tournament 2 months ago, I had an opponent who played this kind of setup with white, and I was desperately seeking something to create some sort of imbalance against a really, really solid player. I was expecting the game to go like actually c4, d6, knight f3, bishop g4, but it can transpose. e3 is a very solid move. It does block in the bishop on c1, but I think that it's quite reasonable for white. I might have played this move. I might have played this once with white, actually. Now there you could consider, you can already consider maybe h3 and g4. It's a little like a Slav. It's actually a lot like a Slav. Basically. It's a Slav clone. My position is a Slav clone. But if he changes his mind and plays like e4 now, like what am I going to do? Let's say I play knight on bd7 and he plays e4. Then we switch plans and play, well, we could switch plans and play for dark square control. We're getting into kind of time pressure already here. d5 looks a little too easy for white. I don't think white could play this any more solidly. But I'm not committing my knight to d7 yet. If he decides to change and play e4, maybe I'd want to play like d5 and knight f d7, like in a Caro-Kann, get a kind of Caro-Kann structure. If e4, I can change plans and go back to dark square type structure for black. If e4, I would probably revert to playing like knight bd7 and playing for e5, and like an old Indian kind of thing. Although I think that white is better here. I like the way he's played. Like, as I said, he can play very well strategically, Kyrgios. Maybe tactically he's not that good. But in the games where he's got me in a very clear strategic position, he's been able to take me out a couple times. White should be slightly better here. So, you know, now knight d7 is interesting. is there any tactic with like e5, bishop takes f3, pawn takes f6, bishop takes e2 type of stuff? Is that even good for white though? Probably not. Yeah, I could just play like knight e8 or anything. Like if he plays e5, his structure is just overextended. So basically, I've got flexibility, you know, to play e5 or d5 later, depending on what he does here. I think white should keep the tension, and he's slightly better. It's a weird old Indian. My bishop's on g4 prematurely. But maybe that's an argument for not playing e5. You know, not to let it be an old Indian. Now we have to talk about bishop h5, g4, bishop g6. Doesn't look that great for white, actually. It's kind of artificial. g4, bishop g6, bishop d3. Yeah, this looks fine. The important thing is that when I play bishop g6, I would be hitting his pawn there. I think that e5 leaves white with a clear advantage in terms of like a good old Indian. So maybe my best bet here is to play d5, when objectively black's probably okay. It's basically a Caro-Kann. Caro-Kann / Slav, which is quite solid, but not very exciting for me. Not the kind of position I want to get against this opponent. Really, I would have done better to play something more open, but it's not easy to force that with black. With black, you don't really have that much power to control open or closed positions. A little bit. Obviously, you can play something extreme like the Scandinavian. That's effective against weaker players who are not comfortable in open positions. But if you get up to a certain level, not as much so. I'm happy to see this, actually. Now, knight e4 looks like it would probably leave me with a hopelessly weak pawn. Bishop takes f3, pawn takes f6 looks kind of problematic. So I guess I just have to play knight e8, but objectively it looks like a kind of Alekhine's defense that's not so bad for me. We have a little bit less space, but the position is quite durable. The knight can come out to c7, get in the game. White is better, but it's not that easy. It's a Slav now. He exchanged on d5. He doesn't have to worry about me getting a good knight on c6. So it's more Slav than Caro-Kann here. I think you could exchange bishop takes knight. I'm not sure that you want to do that unprovoked, though. Actually, my bishop's not a bad piece. It could come back to g6 and be influential. My knight on c7 is a bad piece, though. It's a really bad piece. That's the piece that needs to be fixed here. Dvoretsky was teaching this basic idea that if you don't know what to do, just improve the worst. He called it the principle of the worst piece. So in this case, it's very clear what my worst piece is. It's not difficult to figure out black's worst piece here. I'm a little concerned if I play knight a6, he has knight b5. Well, I guess we're just gonna watch out for this as well. Bishop takes f3 is worth considering, but again, I think it's not the best. I'm worried about knight a4. But I have knight b6 sometimes. This is really, really strange to play knight b6. I hate the square, but I have knight c4 sometimes. I might need to do this to stop knight a4. I'm not a big exponent of knights on knight 3, as you guys who watch regularly know, but this particular situation demands that I stop knight a4. I think this outpost is key. If he plays b3, he's weakening a lot of dark squares in his queen side. So this does create some concrete problems. I'm very happy I found this move. Though I'm thinking of really inferior moves there, like a6, knight a6. And I also have a place for my queen now. Though this was clearly best. If we analyze later, I'm almost certain that this was 100% the right move. f6 is very weakening. That's taking your life in your hands strategically. I mean, you can try it, but I just don't, you know, I don't think you're going to last long against a strong engine after playing f6. I mean, maybe, but it's very, very weakening for black. Speaking of weakening, though, he played a g4 now, so he's like going for it. If there's a question of my bishop getting trapped, I am going to have to move the f-pawn. If it comes to that, I will play f6 or f5 if I have to. But strategically, Kyrgios, as I said, he's pretty good. There was at least one King's Indian where I got squashed. So he's capable of playing high-quality game. Now this move, he's kind of selling out here. I mean, trading pieces. I also have knight c4, which is kind of interesting. Knight c4, bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4. Knight takes c7, queen takes c7. And then like b3. I think we go for it. We don't have much time. And what's he going to do? Like, give up his white squared bishop? It's pretty important, this white squared bishop. Now, the pawn structure is getting kind of random. You know, I don't like losing my strong point, but on the other side of the coin, he's got major weaknesses all over the place on the white squares. And I might just have a passed pawn in the making here. Not really scared of d5. This is as far as I analyzed, more or less. I mean, and I think that I'm good. Unless he can win that pawn outright by force. But I don't think he can do that. I mean, I'll have bishop d3 at some point. He has a lot of weaknesses in his position. I have a passed pawn and the bishop pair. I'm actually threatening bishop a3, which basically wins by force. Yeah, this is maybe only move, queen c3. Rook c8. And as I mentioned earlier, bishop d3 will salvage the pawn. And in the long run, I mean, his king side is just like, it looks really weakened. My bishop's very, very powerful. Bishop d3. And ultimately, he has no access to play rook b1. This is a good practical try. You know, trading dark squared bishops would be nice, but it's not happening. Not happening, sir. Not today. And the h4. h5 or h6. I think white is just desperate. You know, he's in time pressure too now. So he's really on the verge of collapse. Queen b7 looks good. probing those white squares referenced earlier. We got these bishops, the tandem of bishops. Ooh, his queen is almost trapped. I still don't seem to have a knockout blow. Maybe I do. Maybe I missed it. Previous move. I think we have time for one more preparatory move. Getting the last piece in the game before taking decisive action. I mean, f4 is kind of like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? I mean, he's gonna go for it, but it's not gonna get easier. He's gonna get his queen checkmated. Virtual queen checkmate. Still, it's not over. Oh, his rook's just hanging. How long has this been just hanging? Though c3 is strong too. You take the rook at any time, I guess. His queen is checkmated. Alright. Checkmate to Her Majesty. So anyway, interesting game. Kyrgios like weakened his white squares too much in the end, so I managed to succeed with this sort of weird hyper-modern strategy. But objectively, white was better. I mean, it was a kind of typical Slav type formation where he has more space. My knight on c7 is not great, so I think a strong GM there would have made me suffer with very accurate play, but it wasn't that easy. Anyway, guys, we will be back tomorrow. Weird Wednesday, Blitz and Classical Chess tomorrow, 10 a.m. CET. I want to thank everyone for joining me here, and thanks to our moderator, Jeroen, for helping out, controlling the trolls. Controlling. But you missed that. I was wondering why he didn't take it. My bishop was so strong, actually, I think it was like sort of subconscious that I wasn't really interested in that rook. So guys, anyway, thanks for your patience and tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.